let's talk injury news for Derby County then, as we head into a game up against Burnley this evening, where Derby County are going to look to try and get into the third round of the EFL Cup. Now, some of you may have noticed, some of you may not. We do not have a long-form interview from BBC Radio Derby and John Eustace across the course of this week. The reason for that, I am not quite sure, but I do know that sometimes when they have the quick turnarounds between games, they don't necessarily do the interviews, which is completely okay. And obviously with yesterday being a bank holiday, it made it a little bit more difficult. Now, we are reportedly set to have 2 players return to training this week, and a couple more players are getting a little bit closer, and we could potentially see 1 star man back within the squad just as early as tonight. Now, you can obviously let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell. If you are on TikTok, hit like, hit follow, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. But go and check out the full video over on YouTube so you can get up to date with all the latest news. Now, if you have not done so already, check out Kitbag, CD Keys, and NordVPN down in the description. It's one way to get yourself a product while also supporting the channel. Make sure you use those links, as that helps this channel. But shall we get into it? Now, obviously for Derby County, injuries have been a huge discussion across the course of not just the last few weeks and the start of this season, but realistically across the course of the last 2 years, including our spells in League One and obviously our first season in the Championship. Injuries have been a massive problem for this club as we sort of try and put together a rhythm and try and figure things out for ourselves as we deal with the new level of physicality and the changes that have happened at different levels of football. Now, ultimately, Derby County have struggled with that change, but with a lot of changes going on behind the scenes, we're hoping that that is going to change heading into this season. Now, if we take a look at the injury news, Kane Wilson has been training with the Derby County squad since the start of last week and is potentially set to be involved for a return this evening as we face up against Burnley in the EFL Cup Round 2. Now, it will be interesting to see whether he is involved or whether John Eustace saves him for the weekend. It is an interesting one with Kane Wilson because of obviously the incoming signing of Max Johnston and obviously Ryan Nyambi. Joe Ward has been excellent when he's played so far this season. I think it makes Kane Wilson's position a little bit in doubt across the course of the next few weeks, but we're going to have to wait and see how that develops with John Eustace and the squad. Now, we also have a couple of players who are reportedly returning to training this week, but I'm not expecting to see them tonight if they have returned to training anyway. Now, that comes in the form of Lars, Jorgen, Salvesen and Patrick Agyemang. Both players were reportedly set to rejoin in with training yesterday, as per John Eustace in his pre-match media heading into Bristol City. Now, both players have been out with differing injuries. Patrick Agyemang obviously had to have surgery on a hernia, whereas Lars Jorgen Salvesen had to have knee surgery. I think it was back in March, and then had to have a secondary surgery a couple of weeks ago, which kept him out for a little bit longer, but ultimately it's best to get the record straight and get those injuries sorted rather than bringing him back too soon and suffering another long-term injury. Now, in regards to both of those moves, we have not yet had any confirmation or any pictures or anything like that to say that they are 100% back in training, but we are going to have to wait and see on that one. And obviously, they could potentially be involved tonight. And do I think they will be? No. But do I think there's a possibility? There's always a possibility. Now, there is also some conversations in regards to that of Rhian Brewster. He was obviously back with the squad on Friday and was involved in the game where he came on and in my opinion looked very, very good. And I think many people will also agree that he sort of, in my opinion, was a little bit of the star of the show once he came on. And I think he did really well with the ball at his feet. Did he necessarily create opportunities? Not really, but ultimately wasn't on long enough to really make a difference. And I do believe that over the course of the next few weeks, once he finds his form and his fitness, Derby County have got a proper player on their hands. Now, obviously, with him playing on Friday, will he play again tonight? I think there is a possibility, and I think him and both Bobby Clark may start tonight as John Eustace looks to help them rebuild their fitness, heading into an international break, which obviously then turns into a very important part of the season where Derby County really need to get back on track. Now, there's a few other players to discuss, the likes of Owen, Beck and Sondre Langas. They're not expected back until after the international break, which obviously at this point is just over 7 days away, with Derby County's final game being on Saturday afternoon up against Ipswich Town. Before then, a 2-week break where we should expect to see the return of Owen Beck. We should expect to see the return of Sondre Langas, and we're also then guaranteed, given that there's no injury setbacks or anything like that, to see the return of Salvesen and Agyemang to training and to match day squads. But we're going to have to sort of wait and see how that shakes out across the course of the next few weeks anyway. But there is a couple of other players to talk about: Corey Blackett-Taylor, Charles Abuka and Curtis Nelson. They're all still about 4 weeks away. Now, Derby County's return from the international break comes on, I believe, the 13th of September, up against that of West Bromwich Albion, I believe, where hopefully Derby County will have the vast majority of those injured players or doubtful players back within the squad. Obviously, we haven't had an injury update as far so far this week, so we don't know whether anybody else has picked up an injury in training or anybody was hurt during that game on Friday evening. But the hope is that once we hit the end of September, start of October, we should have a fully fit squad ready to go. And the big question with that will be which players are within that first team senior registered squad and which players are not, because there's a lot of conversation points heading our way in that regard, because we do have a lot of players. And obviously if you add the likes of Max Johnston, you add the likes of Lewis Travis, and potentially adding in even some of those potential wing options which Derby County need to go and do, it makes it a very, very interesting position that Derby County find ourselves in, where certain players are going to have to move on and certain players are going to be in difficult positions, because obviously, realistically, apart from Rooney, everyone in the back line needs to be registered. Apart from Dejan Brown, everybody else needs to be registered. So there's a lot of players to be put into the squad and a lot of deals that need to be completed and need to be done. Obviously, we are waiting for that confirmation to come through for Max Johnston, the confirmation for Lewis Travis, which I'm hoping will come today. Obviously, if it does come today, I will have done a live stream earlier on. I am live later on this evening to discuss Derby County versus Burnley in the EFL Cup. We'll be starting between 7 and 7:15. So obviously, if you have not done so already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. But Derby County find ourselves in a very, very interesting position where injuries are at the forefront of conversation yet again, as Derby County are trying to get their squad back to full fitness. Now, we are certainly moving in the right direction with players returning and all of those things, but ultimately we're still probably a few players away from being where John Eustace would probably like us to be, and realistically that will only come in the form of transfers. And as it stands today, there's probably just under a week left of the transfer window, with it closing on Monday evening. But you can obviously let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments, and if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for all of the latest Derby County news heading your way, as well as the latest live streams where we talk transfers and all sorts of things. We were talking takeaways last night, we was talking pre-ordering games, what games we all play and things like that, and that's something that is going to be coming to the live streams on this channel across the course of the next few months. So if you haven't done so already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, let me know your thoughts down below. Check out NordVPN, CD keys and kit bag down in the description, but I'll catch you in my next one. Bye bye.